So, yes, we are going to open the meeting. I'd like to welcome everybody to tonight's meeting. Let's see, the first thing I'm going to do is to read our mission statement, which says the Frederick County CCAP works in collaboration with students, families, FCPS staff, and the community to advise the Office of Special Education and the Board of Education. The committee will focus on open and honest communication, improving effectiveness and accountability, advocating for appropriate resources, and identifying individual issues that may often be systemic. The committee will work together to put children first. Let's see, we have
No one for public
nobody for
comments.
public comment this evening. So we're going to move by that, and I'm hoping everybody got a copy of the notes from our October 24th meeting. Everybody get a chance to look through it and make sure that it was all good. Anybody have any comments, any questions, any corrections? Well, somebody does. Okay, then if everybody's okay with it, then I will need a motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
Who made the motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
And then we have a second.
Second.
Who seconded it?
Okay. All in favor of approving minutes from October 24th? It is unanimous. Very good. Okay, next thing we're going to do is some subcommittee updates. So first we have the membership committee.
Right, so we added the 2 new members to replace the members we lost last month. And then also something that came up at the last meeting was about the possibility of inviting student members. That's something I'd like to introduce to the members about how we introduce that and numbers. That was the recommendation from the student board member
That's
at the
right.
Board of Education meeting to invite actual special education students to sit in the committee.
I actually went and spoke with him afterwards, just to ask for his ideas because I expressed that there had been members before, but we've lost them. Maybe it's just boring sitting at old adults, I don't know, talking all of these things. But his suggestion was that when it's time for membership applications to go back out, that he is more than happy to put it all on all of his media for us. So this way, he says he has a pretty big following. So this way, he can get the word out that way, be probably better received by a peer than by us.
Yeah, we have to do our meetings on TikTok. Then
Well, and just something to share, I think one of the hiccups that we had last time is really coming up with also things for them to do
Right.
to help support CCAP.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, one of them was very active at first, and she was on the communications committee, and she was talking with me back and forth, and I think she just didn't feel like she had like a real role on the committee. So I think that's something that we could think about and brainstorm, is not only how to get more people interested in doing it, but coming up with clear goals for the student members. Obviously, they should be a vocal part of the committee, but I think they would probably feel more comfortable if they knew exactly what they were supposed to be doing.
In addition to that, it might be an idea to open it up not just to special education students, but the whole student population. So it's a bigger pool to pull from.
Yeah.
Because inclusion is such a big thing that they are
I
you
don't
know,
if the previous
integrated,
members
so
were
it would.
not.
I think we did have an open.
Yeah.
We did. There were several students, but obviously they're not here. So I don't know, and I don't know if it's the timing, and I think some of the student applicants are also very active in their schools. So it's another thing, that they're adding to their plates. So I don't know if there might be a way to, like you said, define the role, that they could be active, that they could maybe not have to be here for the full 2 hours, but still have an active voice. Because they, school girls still need to come first.
What was advertising like to get, because I never heard of CCAC before this year when I got an FCPS email, so I don't know how they would hear about CCAC or the mission and.
I'm not sure how we got the word out to the 3 who did join. Only 2 ever showed up and only 1 ever continued on for a bit. But you didn't hear about CCAP because it wasn't out there, and that's part of what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
My revitalized communication and publication committee. So yeah, any ideas on that front on getting more out there, I will take, whether it's to get student members or just altogether getting CCAC's name out there. I will take any and all ideas.
I think
Meg, to the point of what everybody's asking, part of the recommendations that came to the board a few weeks ago was that we had better connections in terms of when you had something available that you wanted to be communicated out, or perhaps, how do we create a find out first that goes out to every high school, middle school even, that says what you're looking for. And then that way the students actually receive it.
Yeah, I think it would be important for it to go out to middle schoolers because they might not be interested in 8th grade, but they would know about it when they're getting into high school for sure. And I think that's also could tie in with one of our goals, which is to get in contact with admin of all the schools and get into as many newsletters and PTA newsletters as possible. Because students might not be looking at those, but I know for sure when I was in high school, Mom would be like, did you see this from your school? You need to go do that. And she would just poke at me until I said, fine, I'll go look at it. So I think that would tie in well with our goal of getting word out that way as well. But yeah, thinking about how membership and communication can work together to get the word out, and then how we can keep the members when we get student members
I
involved.
think another way would be, when you start inviting the students to their IEPs and their 504s, because they're now an active participant, having them while they're sitting at that table, were you aware, that you can be an active voice for yourself and your peers?
Are there peer mentor groups in all the schools?
Are there?
Peer mentor groups in all the schools.
Just in general or,
Uh-huh.
or like
Just in
CCAC
general.
I'm not aware.
Sports wise, we have.
I mean, typically in every school, there are usually set up by the school counselors in the schools to do that. But I was also thinking about service learning and work study opportunities that are at high schools, Kim.
We have a student service learner who works in the past program, that's what's assigned to our class concept.
Another way to incentivize is many of our our students take the opportunity at the high school level anyway to get their completer. They have to do some service learning hours. And so we could also duplicate connecting. I think the best students that we've had on CCAC in the past have been one where there was like a family member who was on CCAC or knew somebody, or a previous retired teacher who knew somebody that's still in the organization, and kind of tied in and noticed their drive and their grit for wanting to advocate for themselves. Those also have been the best to try to also connect with, to really have it be meaningful and purposeful to them. But it also might be a good sell to connect those find out first, at least at the high school level, to say this could also count for your SSL hours toward your diploma.
I think the Final First is an excellent idea. Because they asked any of the teachers, would you like an SSL? And I said, I would like one. And so because I requested one, a student came, and she has been a gift to us. So I think if other teachers knew that they could do that, and then we advertised that we had this opportunity, you would have people who can step up to
Yes, sir.
Some of the questions, some of the discussion implied that we would be looking for a special needs child, and others seem to imply just the opposite. I think as the board here, the committee, we should talk about that and have some idea. Do we want to specify one of the two will be special needs or not?
I think to that point, John, the application should ask a couple of things. Do you have transportation to the Board of Ed if we continue to host here? And then why would you be interested in supporting, a committee that supports individuals with disabilities? I don't know that they necessarily have to have a disability, but to your point, some of them in the past have had disabilities.
We've also
But-
had,
Various
absolutely, and we've also had across our high schools, our unified sports. We have many students who are participating as peers who may be able to speak to, I don't know if your criteria would be they have to have a 504 and IEP, or could they be a peer buddy who's a part of unified sports that could advocate also? I think that would be a great idea as well.
I think it would be great if it was someone who had a disability, 504 IEP, but I don't think that should be a requirement. Because again, we have some of these great peer programs, we have students who have great drives, we have students who want to go into education and they may want to go into special education, and they may not have a 504 IEP. So in my opinion, I feel like it should be a plus, but not a qualifier, essentially. We obviously want to be as diverse as possible, but we may not get a student right away who is interested in it, who has a 504 IEP, and then here we might get someone.
We also have a teaching apprenticeship at CTC. And I don't know if you've noticed lately in the FCPS mail under media, they're always, they never put my picture up. I'm a Middletown Knight from 1920. Thanks for coughing. Well, I said right here. And they always say, hey, we just hired a 2012 graduate from Frederick High, and she's a special ed teacher. Well, we have a teacher apprenticeship program preparing individuals to be teachers at the Career and Technology Center. And some might have an interest specific to special education. We could also maybe recruit them if they'd like to be a member. But it's all about the timing. I think when we talk about membership a lot in the past. And so having that more open and more ongoing earlier than we have in the past allows us to send information to CTC, to send it to the high schools to get SSL students to.
And to that point, especially for a student member, our membership is at the end of the school year. They're swamped. High schoolers are swamped at the end of the school year. So I think if we could get the information to them sooner, and if they wanted to apply sooner, we could say, we're not going to make a decision until next time, but you've got 10 minutes now and you might not have 10 minutes later to fill out this application. So that might be something for membership to consider. And again, we'll work together to get the word out. But I just remember being totally swamped in high school from like March on. We do membership in April.
So one of the reasons I asked about the peer mentorship, but I think would fall in line with the unified sports. That was the other thing I was thinking of, is you could get an individual with a disability and without. You keep that pair, they're already a team or have worked together. And then when they come to the group, they're not alone. And so coming through that process together might keep, maybe not, students are different in the time, but that might keep the students involved if they're here together. And you have the best of both worlds. You have somebody without a disability interacting with somebody with a disability. They understand each other. They provide valuable feedback.
That might be something that we figure out wording in when we're putting out the publication, saying, if you want to do this and you are part of a peer mentor program or unified sports and you know a partner who might want to join us with you, here's all the information. We could word it that way, you two can join together, right?
In that same vein, I could see a sibling also, in this, the Facebook group, there's tons of superstar siblings that are just like, you see it all the time, that would probably love the opportunity to be involved.
Another idea would be to open up a student membership slot in each subcommittee and kind of recruit based on their electives in high school. Like the digital media courses could be part of communication and utilize those skills that they're using in school.
I think that's a great idea.
Do the things that the people around this table can't do. CCAC's gonna have a TikTok.
I
We gotta
said we
learn our
could, and
dances.
everybody looked at me like I had 3 heads, so I didn't make one, but. No, I think that's a great idea. That would, again, give them a role, but kind of make it more interesting, like, to the students, and maybe look more into being on it.
You need a whole hour to teach us how to use it.
That's very good. All right, how about communication?
I feel like that was like a joint. Well, all of what was just said, and then we are slowly working on the website. I need to touch base with you two about that. We haven't met again. If everybody's okay with it, instead of us having one meeting, I was going to try to have meetings. We kind of have subcommittees within our subcommittee now because it's a lot for us to have too many fingers in one pot. And so I think it'll be easier for us to meet when we're able to talk about each thing as we need to. But we'll be working on the website, working with membership, trying to get into newsletters. I'm going to be working on that next with the people who are interested in that. And then if anybody has anything you think we could post, email me, send it to the CCAC Facebook page via message. Like, I only have so much that I can see, and you guys are all out in the schools and in the community and in different parts of the community for me. So if you see something and you think it would be great for us to post, I'd love to have it. I want to try and keep posts up as much as we can, because that gets our visibility out a lot more. But other than that, we don't really have any updates right now.
So then that takes us to the resource fair retreat events. Kara can't be here tonight.
She gave me.
Okay, yeah, so I'm also being Kara and myself trying to take notes.
Did you want me to go through the report?
Yes, please.
All right. Joanna, Christina, and myself met with Kara virtually a week ago, last Tuesday, and we have our subcommittee plans to present to the committee. Kara reviewed our mission and our goals, bringing awareness of community resources to families and students, host a resource fair to provide resources to families and community members, introduce and connect families and community members to professionals who can help them understand the benefits and services they may be eligible for, provide current survey for feedback, co-sponsor community and family events, host or co-host workshops and or events to educate families on topics of interest, host and lead a spring retreat for committee members with a focus on team building and current year reflections and next year planning. Our virtual meeting dates were last Tuesday, 6 to 7 virtually. Our next meeting date is December 12th, 6 p.m. virtually. We have a meeting planned for the 23rd in January, an hour before our in-person board meeting, and then again February before our in-person board meeting. Project fair, projects and programs. Our resource fair will be in person with virtual resources included. We will have a spring retreat. Workshops suggestions were an assessment series to talk about and explain to parents what the different assessments entail. Things like a psychological, educational, speech language, OT, PT, and other assessments, explained to parents how to better understand them, understanding the IEP process, understanding the IEP document, disability rights and understanding the IEP process, specialized programs overview to kind of explain programs like expressions or a pyramid program to parents. Have a parent panel for administrators and special educators, pathfinders for autism, transition services. What do each of the services provide? DDA, Mental Health Administration, Department of Labor, and DOORS. Transition fair with further testing. Resources for in-betweeners, students who are not between diploma bound, non-diploma bound, and how they fit in and what resources are available for them. Resources for CTC, Success 2.0. As speakers on non-seclusion practices and real life. Community events. Collaborating with Frederick area businesses and nonprofits. On December the 10th at 11 a.m. we have the Everybody's Nutcracker with Dee Buchanan Studio of Dance, and she sent me a link and information to give to communication. Did you? She sent you?
I've received it, so everybody can share it once CCAP posts it later tonight.
Wonderful, great. Collaborate with Partners for Success to participate in workshops and training events. Collaborate with Family and Community Involvement Coordinator to reach a broader community. Collaborate with Friends, which is an organization that works with students with Down syndrome. Our timeline, December 1st, save the date for our resource fair to vendors. December 10th, try to solicit people for Everybody's Nutcracker with Dee Buchanan. January 3rd, send vendors registration. February, which should be a date, a workshop event in February. March 18th will be our actual resource fair at the Rockridge School from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. March 18th, we'll also have workshops, 1 to 2 workshops held at the resource fair. April or May, another workshop or an event. And May 8th will be our spring retreat. Financial needs, $500 for a custodian for the resource fair, 400 training demonstration inclusions, presenter Christy Flayhart, and then she doesn't have just ideas to keep the retreat free. We'll welcome those. Additional resources, signs, readers needed to check in at a check-in table, bins of supplies, t-shirts from previous resource fairs. And she had some notes from previous years. And I think that was it. Any questions?
What's the school it was gonna be at? I didn't hear what school it was.
School, yeah, Rock Creek. It's a great place to have to degree coaching. That's why.
We did a job.
Kim,
Yes.
the Evans family, who represent Friends, had reached out to me to suggest that they wanted to pair a 5K, a walk or run 5K that morning to raise money for Friends and support CCAC and FCPS. And so I will connect Evan with you through an email so that you guys can coordinate. It sounded like Friends was going to set up everything through the Run app so that no one would have to do anything other than, show up and everybody walk or run with us.
No, is this what date again? It's gonna be
The date, either the date that we have
Oh,
of the
the fair.
resource
I
fair,
got
that
it.
early
March
morning,
18th.
right before it starts, or a snow date, because it always seems to happen that the snows are going to be later in the year, not earlier. So whatever our snow date is.
No, I was telling her that I have a conflict. Our sorority has an annual UMLU summit. It's on the same date. And so
Priorities.
I know I will do everything to set it up, but then this has been.
I don't know. What are you, a
I'm
Sigma?
education committee chair.
What are you though? Are you a Delta?
Delta Sigma Theta sorority. So every year.
I think
the
you
last
need,
6
you're a CCAC member now.
So I
And
have
that's
to
on a
go,
recording.
Yes, I will definitely be helping set this up, but I have to go over there with the young men on the day.
It may snow.
Don't say that. Either way, I'm in trouble. We have too many things planned on that day. But that was powerful. And that was the Evans family?
Yes,
With-
Katie Routson. Evan and Katie Routson. I mean, yeah, their daughter Avery attends Brunswick Middle School. And Evan is the vice president or the vice chair of the Friends Network.
I've been to a Friends, they have wonderful, work, every year that they do their retreat, not the retreat. Yeah, they do a training, but there was a whole conference, they had a conference. Different, that's not what I'm talking about. But I will look for their name.
Okay, thank you. And the next subcommittee is budget. Dustin.
So I'm still gonna need more time to get acquainted to being treasurer and being head of the budget committee, because I kind of got thrown in last meeting and I've not really gotten any crash course to get me up to speed on responsibilities, expectations, or even access to the resources. So Dawn tried to help me get access to the resources. Unfortunately, there's two-factor authentication that Kara has control over. So when I requested it, I did not get access because she did not click the yes. And she responded back later at a different time when I wasn't available and said, send me another link. So I haven't had a chance to do that. So I still need to let into the resources so I can review everything that's there, all the spreadsheets, where everything's kept, maybe some more documentation about what's expected of me. During that time, though, we did have an issue with the Tuscarora Best Buddies funding that did not go through. I don't know if that snuck its way onto the agenda or not, because I know you got the agenda sent to you before we had that issue arise. So if it's not on the agenda, we need to vote today to approve the funding for the Tuscarora Best Buddies, if that's a required thing for us to vote for, but because we need to approve for this year, because even though it got approved for last year, it did not happen, and it got sent back. So that's an issue we need to talk about today. Outside of that, I just need to work with Dawn and Kara. And is there anyone else that has been on the budget committee in past years that has experience on the budget committee? So I don't know, ideally, we can get on a Zoom meeting once I have access to the resources and we can talk all that through, because I'm not really sure.
Who's
I
our
don't wanna
best
drop the
buddy
ball.
committee people?
We don't have
We don't have one.
right now.
So I would say that we probably need to do that, like get someone on the group assigned to that work for Best Buddies so they can connect with Tuscarora to see if they are interested in continuing the Best Buddies at Tuscarora or not. I think we haven't had someone in charge of Best Buddies for a while now through the pandemic. So I don't want to allocate something if it's not something they're going to use. We want to allocate it to a high school that would use it. Since before the pandemic, there was always a committee focused on Best Buddies. And so I just want to make sure that there's some connection with the schools to find out what schools are actually interested. And if Tuscarora still is interested, and if not, how can we project out to the high schools what is Best Buddies? And if you're interested in doing it, we will fund it.
So
I mean, I would get the impression based on the communications that we've had, their interest, she checked in on the funding and where it was and why she had received it. So,
She
So-
meaning
Michelle.
Michaela Persinger.
Michaela.
So I work at,
Tuscarora High.
I work at Tuscarora.
Okay,
Their Best Buddies is still active. I just bought a t-shirt.
wonderful. I'm so sorry. I did not know, and I just
No.
wanted to make sure.
And I don't mind I don't know what other schools have it, but I don't mind being the connection to Tuscarora. So I'm there every day and I'm in the morning for Life Room a lot and I know Michaela.
Yeah, so the quick
Joanna.
catch up to speed is it was approved for last year, it was requested, the money was approved, and for whatever reason, the amendment didn't go through. And I don't know how that mess up happened with the documentation because I don't have access to that documentation. But I have seen the documents and the emails confirming it was approved. And then somehow the money did not get allocated and then it went back because it wasn't set up for me. She did check in on it, say, hey, where's that funding I was promised? And so then that started the chain of emails that I started since the last meeting to figure out, okay, well, what do we do now?
So do
And
they get money every year or?
I think this was a
No,
new
we have
thing
money
that,
left.
Okay.
And so based on that, over the summer, Michelle Clune, she used it to buy items for the upcoming resource fair
Okay.
to give out. And then there were funds left over. And so we all voted to, I think it was $350. And so it didn't get received and they were inquiring to Michelle. Michelle let them know that she was no longer a member of CCAC. And then it kind of got passed on to Dustin, who looped me in. But they were anticipating the funds for this year. I kind of feel like maybe they had already anticipated using them towards something based on the emails. So we were emailing back and forth about, is there a way to make good on our promise now? Because we kind of failed them, basically.
so we need to vote on it then, right? I get the impression, because this is a new year and a new budget, that we would need to vote on that.
I'm gonna make a motion to vote for the $350 to go to Tuscarora.
Second.
All in favor?
You mentioned that Michelle may have spent some funding on fidgets, I think is what we called them, for the resource fair. Did she do that or?
Yes, she did.
They're
It's
at
at my house.
Okay.
They're at Patty's house.
I have a question. Ms. Chambers mentioned a subcommittee for Best Buddies. Are we involved in Best Buddies across the county? Because this seems like a one and done, 350 left over for Tuscarora. But what's our involvement with Best Buddies overall each year?
Great question. We haven't had a committee since before the pandemic,
Okay.
so
But before
I
the
would
pandemic,
imagine.
we financed a lot.
Now, think about it this way. There is a budget of how much, Dustin, in the CCAC budget?
$2,500.
$2,500, and that has not changed in decades. Or at least the 2 decades that I've been here. And so I don't disagree. I think that it'd be great to re-stand up a committee. I know Julie might be the chair now, because she just said she might. And then we can start asking, and then thinking about how we raise money. That 5K might have some great money raised if everybody comes out and people donate. We might have more money for more Best Buddies. But I think that's something that this committee needs to kind of organize, because you only have $2,500 for the year.
And to that point, because so many of you all are new, but especially Dustin, because you're not over at the budget, is, I mean, really best practice is that you're bringing everything that you all want to spend this year by January, honestly, at the latest. So then you can submit for the amendment. We all can let you know that it's approved. When it gets caught up in the summer, it closes in September of next year. But honestly, you should have it all spent by June when school ends. They let us have these months run over to the next school year, but honestly, the idea is that this money is being spent during the school year. And for the past 2 years, unfortunately, because it goes back and forth and then we end in May with CCAC, it gets behind. So just kind of helping you out a little bit.
You're answering a lot of my questions that I already have, because like I'm as green as you can be to this treasurer position. I was new to CCAC just 2 months ago. So from what I'm hearing from you, it sounds like and maybe this happened during May last year, that there's a preliminary budget that's already written out that I should be able to find in the resources in the Google Drive, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And
We
then
always
once I
have
get
to
in there,
submit for the grant this year.
so that'll already be there. And then
you,
we
of course,
do an
get
amendment by January, once I get this approved, and then I figure out what else she was saying, $500 for this, $500 for that. Talk to our committees, get all that approved, submit the amendment in January, and then
Submit what you want to amend to Troy and I
Okay,
in January, and then we can submit that amendment
okay,
for approval.
okay.
Then the State Department will approve it early, and we spend all the $2,500 no later than May.
Noticed on one document that actually got emailed to me that didn't need to get into the Google Drive, that the superintendent's signature was required on, it. Is that true?
Yes.
So it
Every
goes to
case,
you
the
and then you
only
get
way
it.
that money is executed or any contracts is always through the superintendent's
Okay.
signature.
I'm getting a better grip on the processes, okay. And then from here, I'll just try and get that Google Drive and I will shoot you emails about questions.
So far it's 350 to Best Buddies and then 500 for the custodian fee.
Okay,
So that's where we are right now. The 500 for the custodian fee would have been in that
I think
proposal.
website, one money.
we had one.
Oh, there's that on the website.
I don't know if that is-
Go to our website.
Yeah. Okay, so I will email all the committee, so Meg, Kara, and Marlena. And then hopefully, we don't have another meeting for January, do we?
That's our next meeting in January. But we open back up for business on like January 2nd. We're here, so you can communicate stuff to us.
Okay.
But I think what I heard today, so just to be clear, she shared, I think you guys could vote now. Membership just shared, Best Buddies just shared, communications shared what they need, and you guys shared what you need for the resource fair. If everybody could agree to those components here, then that'll be your amendment.
Okay.
And if you're okay with that.
I think we may be over, so that's another issue.
The long custodian always did it.
I would be ready to bring your proposed $2,500 budget in January, so you all can vote on it.
Let's do a quick,
Whatever has to be amended, then we'll submit once you all approve.
all right,
And then purchases, if we have to purchase stuff, we'll help you all out with those purchases and stuff. But if you wait any longer, that's what sadly ends up happening is we also don't want you all to have to end up sending the money back because you don't get to spend it in time.
yeah, we won't let that happen, I promise.
What about the Partners for Success funding? I mean, I know we'll probably talk about that vacancy.
It's all allocated directly
Okay.
to that,
Mhm.
and can't be cross-fund with or braided with CCAC. So, and we have some great news coming your way during Director Conference.
Can we do a quick run through again, then? So Meg, 200 for website?
2 to 220, I would have to look at
Well,
the,
go the
just say
overall
220 for right now.
All right,
Um,
and then
I
500
have
for
it in the plan. but I don't
500 for the
have it.
custodian fees.
350 for Best Buddies, and then what were the things?
Our two were the 500 for the custodian salary for the resource fair and 400 for training demonstrations.
400 for training demonstrations. And nothing for, we're not funding anything for the Nutcracker thing, tickets or
That-
anything?
No, that is, Dee Buchanan's, dance studio puts that on.
And it's
they
all
just-
free?
It's all free. They just like us to come kind of help. So they'll ask for volunteers. And the other part of it is we post it on CCAC and then everybody's gonna share it everywhere. But no, we don't put any money towards that. It's more of a support role for us.
Okay. 400 for training what?
Training / demonstrations.
Okay, is there
Is that like speakers?
She said inclusion presenter.
inclusion presented? Is this a space holder or is there something actually?
I don't have enough information that I can go.
Okay,
And you mentioned a specific
You
name.
mentioned-
of a
Oh,
person.
Christy Flayhart, but she works with, Christy Flayhart's name is in parentheses, and I'm not
Okay.
Did
sure.
you mean Chuck Flayhart, because he's the one that
Oh,
comes on
it's,
stilts and juggles
like-
stuff?
No, that's not the one she's talking. She's talking about putting on like a workshop.
Yeah.
Or a program for
It
parents.
says Flayhart, I know, but it says.
That
C.
won't cost
Flayhart.
$400. That'll be
I
free.
No,
think
that's our employee.
Yeah.
That's
I
why
don't
I'm thinking
pay
it
any
can't
money
be
if
that.
that's the
I wasn't-
employee.
at the meeting, but I'm making the assumption $400 was a placeholder for finding another speaker and then reaching out to Christy to see if Christy could help us put on
Yeah, I don't have
a
enough
workshop.
details on
Obviously, we
this.
would not pay her from CCAC, but help us put something together for, again, I wasn't at the meeting, but that's what I'm getting out of the notes is 400 is a placeholder for someone we're gonna find for a workshop, and then Christy's name was in there for maybe working with on something different.
And I didn't put enough notes into it.
But I think you're right about the other, because we had trouble last year with the money for that.
Is your intention
Chuck
to,
Flayhart.
that's another thing we need to bring up, because we can't wait until after the resource fair to try to pay Chuck Flavart if it wasn't an agreement to have him be a part of a payment for a budget for the resource fair. So that's something else just to think about. It's been kind of an after the fact. He's invited last minute, and then can we pay him after the budget's already approved? So I want to make that also known to you, that if that's something that the team wants to do, it needs to be in the budget to vote on in January at our January meeting.
Or the other example is you put the $400 placeholder, you all don't figure out who that person is, then you have $400, then you gotta do a second amendment. So
Well, I
it's just,
think
you really wanna figure out like what
That
you
was
all
one of the
want
things
this
that's
money to
gonna
go.
be discussed at the next meeting.
That's probably the December meeting.
I was saying that
Yeah,
she
this
said
is
there's going to be a December meeting
December
for this
12th.
committee,
Yeah, we have to
and
discuss that.
I'm guessing that there will be more in-depth discussion and figuring out a person for that placeholder and then bringing it back to the committee with a definite, is my assumption.
Sounds like a good
Just knowing how Kara works, that's my assumption.
Okay, so a couple things from everything I've got, everyone here. The other thing that I heard mentioned, there's already flyers and other resources for the fair. There's nothing else that Karen needs for money wise
She
to
has
promote.
specifically financial needs, and under that, there were 3 things: the custodial salary, the training demonstration,
Okay,
and 0 for retreat location, because she wants ideas that are free.
ideas that are free.
But she
Okay,
had that under the category
And
of
then
financial
for
needs,
the-
but she had 0.
okay,
Resource fair, I believe we still have a lot of flyers, we have fidgets,
Okay.
things like that, so we may need to get more of those in the future, but I don't think we need
okay.
any of
Because
that
we're only
money
at
this year.
1470 from what I have so
Mhm.
far listed, which gives us another $1,000. And so I have 2 issues from everything that I'm hearing right now. And that's that $400 sounds like a placeholder until Kara gets us more information or more information is decided upon. And secondly, we don't have another meeting between now and January for these allocations to get voted on. So is after the January going to be sufficient for us to submit your amendment, or I have to submit it to you by January?
We already, Troy and I are trying to be as gentle as kind as we can.
Okay,
But I just want to share, if we don't have a December meeting, and we talked about getting it early in January to get an amendment in, but now we're gonna wait till the end of January. If we wait even longer, then we're in February. So if we could potentially
No, my-
have
no,
all
my
the
thinking-
decisions made so that you vote on the
Vote on
budget at the
January.
January meeting.
that's what I'm saying.
And
I don't
then
have
we
enough to
walk
vote on.
away with you sending us a communication saying, here's exactly what we're gonna do.
That would be the plan, yeah, absolutely. I'll make sure that happens. I just don't have another meeting for us to vote on it before January and I have.
No, that's fine.
the information.
Yeah, that's the end of January, we're good to
Right.
go.
You just
I
don't
thought
wanna
you
get
meant
caught
like
up.
keep
No, no.
going into February,
No,
maybe
no, I just mean that I don't
March.
have another voting meeting, so,
We have voted via email.
Yeah, we do digital
As
stuff.
an option.
all right.
The other, so you said you had, you already have flyers for the, and then we talked,
CCAP flyers.
okay, we don't have fair specific flyers.
No, not fair specific.
And we also talked about whatever the flyer is going to be, making them poster size and putting them in IEP rooms at the school, so we'd have to fund that, right? And then we used to have the giant sign that we would put outside of Rock Creek for the fair.
We had a sign last year.
Okay, I just didn't know if we still had it or what the
It's
condition.
in my garage.
Okay.
It'd be awesome to have a group, a small group of individuals that knows how to leverage the different Frederick community for-profit, nonprofit organizations that we perhaps have partnerships with and other things. Because this group is so awesome at getting together and saying, oh, we could do that, or we could do that, and we still have a $2,500 budget. So the one thing about having the 5K, that won't help us out until about March. But it'd be really cool to have some people who had good connections with community organizations so that we could start raising money in a different way for CCAC, for some of these things that we want to do. It's just an idea. There's so many community organizations that are so willing.
Are we allowed to raise money as CCAP?
What you guys do to
I'm-
fund what you want to do, I don't see any problem with that.
But I would say like, does CSAC allow for us to do that? I would want to look into that before we
Sure,
put
you-
effort into doing.
You'd be surprised, I think, didn't you and Kara go to the last CSAC meeting, you would be surprised, a lot of our CCACs across the state, they raise more money because they get the same amount that every other CCAC gets, and they want to do bigger things, and,
It's like a PTA.
I just want to make sure. 'Cause,
yeah, like a PTA.
But communications committee did talk about having part of our committee be focused on getting out to the community more. So if that could be its own subcommittee, that would be better.
The main thing is if you raise money, it's just like a PTA, you have to account for it. That's
Yeah.
why you have a treasurer. So any additional money beyond the $2,500 grant, you could open the public records, et cetera, et
I just
cetera.
know some state committees won't allow for that, so I just want to make sure before we do. Thank you.
When we have the vendors that come in to the fair, we don't charge them anything. I don't think we can charge.
Yeah.
But we could potentially, if this is all accurate, then ask for even a $10 donation from each vendor that's coming in there. Potentially, I don't know how many.
But I guess what I'm hearing also is we could find someone and partner and do a fundraiser with them and maybe.
Or there's a bunch of organizations in Frederick that just have services to provide it. I see you shaking your head, speak up. Yeah, they just give.
That too, but-
You say, we need, and they say, here you go. Connect with whoever is going to lead that could connect with the Chamber of Commerce, with Rick Weldon.
Anything else?
I would just say, in closing, think about what else we want to spend our money on, because we have $1,000 that I want to get allocated before the end of December, at least have a plan for, so that by the time we come back January, we can vote on it. So all committee chairs find other money, ways to spend money, and send me emails.
Okay. So next, under old business, we have a CCAC presentation that we did on November 9th. Did everybody get a chance to watch it? I know some of you were there.
Did watch it. Great.
What was everybody's opinion? Did we do a good job? We did get a couple of comments back from former CCAC members who said that they watched and that we got our point across, that we did well.
Liz Barrett emailed us all and congratulated the recommendations and the excellent presentation. It's a great job.
So I think we all did a really good job putting it together.
And I would say that to the point of when we were having that meeting a couple months ago, you really knocked it out of the park, getting measurable, understandable, aligned requests to the task force recommendations that'll be purposeful and easy for the board to digest and navigate. So superior kudos. You guys all did a great job.
The next piece of old business is an update on care. We were supposed to talk about that last month. Got carried over. Yes.
I don't remember what questions.
What are we?
Looking at
We
each
didn't
other
have
like.
any update on what was going on with Peru in the schools, and I think there were some questions about which schools it was in, how it's being implemented, some of the training.
So it was in the special education update. We can go back and we reviewed it in the October meeting. However, I can reiterate that UCARU is a restraint-free, trauma-informed practice that is used across our nation. We currently have trained over 275 individuals, and it's being implemented in our specialized programs of expressions, Learning for Life at TJ, because they have expressions and Learning for Life there, and all of our elementary pyramid programs, Lewistown and Blue Heron, as well as all of our expression programs. 5 elementaries, Carroll Manor, Deer Crossing, Middletown Primary, Middletown Elementary,
TJ Middle,
TJ Middle and
Deer
TJ
Crossing.
High, Deer Crossing. Went day 1 to hang out at TJ and got to go hang out in Kim's room. The pads that are used are laying around purposefully in instruction, so students can feel comfortable laying on them, learning on them, reading on them, using their math manipulatives on them. So I'm gonna let Kim speak in a moment about her experience with Ukeru and how that's going. However, in the areas where Ukeru is being used, we've had very few, if any, restraints reported. And so it's really a focus more about comfort over control and trauma-informed practices and how to create a learning environment that minimizes any kinds of triggers that are specific to supporting students, saying, how can I help you? Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? You know, what can I do for you? Giving space so that there isn't an escalation. But there are pads that are used in circumstances to block any serious and imminent threat that comes towards another individual, staff, or student. So Kim, how is it going?
I haven't had to use it for any of those purposes. It's kind of later on, like I said, when you came in, one of my kids were laying on it, like, and I know the purpose of having them laying around was to have a comfort level so that all of a sudden it didn't come out like a battering ram if the student is becoming aggressive. And so they're just laying around. I had training back in August. I'll have training again this week on Wednesday. And it reminds me of CPR, crisis prevention and intervention, of how to de-escalate and how to make sure students are comfortable and that you're communicating. The better you know the students you work with, you can kind of see when they're getting elevated and you know strategies, how to deal with them along that I know some of them work with some of them now going into a second year. So I haven't had to use them as a defense.
We're seeing more school teams use them in instruction just naturally, and kids actually learning on them and reading on them. There are some specific smaller pads. We have some students who do self-injurious behavior, head-butting, head-banging. And so it also helps in circumstances if Troy were banging his head against a concrete wall here. I'm at Troy, you're safe, I'm here to help you. We slide the pad in there so when they're banging against a pad so they're not injuring themselves. But all of our school teams have reported probably not needing to use them because they're mostly in the circumstance of using all of the proactive de-escalation techniques. And it's giving a sense of safety and calmness to the environment. Staff members can check themselves and regulate themselves, check the environment, and be able to have really true understanding of students' behavior intervention plans and implement them with fidelity. Any other questions about it?
I was just say, do we have any actual data or feedback from teachers?
So we meet every 2 weeks as an implementation team, the trainers do, to talk about how it's going, fidelity. Our coordinators of the program are trained. Many of our coordinators are trainers. And so they do ongoing fidelity checks to ensure that the de-escalation strategies are being utilized. There is a debriefing process that goes along with it. And those debrief, if the pads are ever used, are uploaded to our Maryland Online IP. Handful, like literally a handful.
Yeah, at elementary expressions, it's used most often for self-injurious behavior, as Linda discussed. That's where they use them. Pyramid, where our students that have challenging behavior. We're still having conversations at elementary if we feel that it's the best fit for that program. Where, you know, students that do want to take out aggression, they can use those. But we also want to make sure that they're able to generalize those coping skills into something that like I learn how to breathe? Do I take a walk? You know,
The executive director of UCARU, Kim Sanders, she attends our implementation meetings to give us advice. They're also available on hand to do virtual meetings with school teams at any time they need to discuss a student. We have a really good relationship with them. But it is, you know, people talk about should we expand it, et cetera. We're really being thoughtful to take a look at what practices work and not over initiating a circumstance like Troy was talking about that would prepare our learners to be on the defense if they saw the pads, or prepare them to feel unsafe in any way. So it's more, and always has been, a focus across the nation that UCARE is used with our more intense students with significant disabilities, perhaps certificate-bound students who are in our programs. So it's definitely not a mainstream kind of crisis response support.
So I guess what I would be interested in, kind of two-part was my question. One, more in the direction that you answered, but the other second part is, I know in all the whole DOJ stuff, there was a little bit of discontention between parents, teachers, and you know, teachers. There was a decent amount that felt like you take these restraints away from me, you don't understand, you're not in my classroom, you don't know what I'm going to deal with. And I would just like to maybe, you know, obviously the goal, part of that goal needs to be so that we're all together on the same page, working towards the same goals. So I'd love to hear from the teachers on their opinions with the, you know, we've got somewhat of an opinion here, but she hasn't put it into practice, but just a more data-driven opinion on the teachers' opinions. Are we heading in the right direction? Are they happy with what's being offered and supplied and so forth?
I think the big thing is not so much we're trying to change the whole conversation about not what you do when behavior occurs, what you do way before, and that's the true culture of prevention.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where we're shifting. That's with now having 15 BCBAs available and having those conversations, and then our staff that have become 11 months is the conversation about what's the function of the behavior, how do we address that? So then being empowered there is where they're understanding that a lot more, going with the multifunction BIPs versus they do feel anecdotally what they've shared is that they do like that they have options because staff were getting injured.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is another way to protect our employees. So some of them do feel safer having them available if it was to escalate into a crisis.
So our implementation team meets again this Friday or next Friday, I can't recall, next Friday. And we'll add that to the agenda about surveying staff.
But after last meeting, I explored their website and things because it was all new to me. And it did mention, you know, trauma-informed practices, but what caught my eye was there's no citations, there's no data to back up that informed data. To me, informed practices is based on peer-reviewed publications. And I ran the name through JSTOR and ERIC databases and I couldn't find anything. So is this like an experimental technique, or how would you define it?
So it's evidence-based, and they are currently, as they've trained across the nation, have case studies. If you go back to UCARE Systems Inc., to the case study section, you'll see the application and the decrease in different public school systems across the nation. Millersville Public School System in PA is one of them. And I think their attempt now is to move towards peer review. Just like structured literacy wasn't peer reviewed at first. It has to be evidence-based,
Okay, yeah, so
case
it's
study.
still
It's
in development, so it wouldn't, okay.
Well, ethically, not to get on a tangent, but crisis prevention is going to be a really hard thing to ever get to a level of evidence-based because of the ethics involved in doing the research and that, you know, pushing it from research-based to evidence-based about a crisis prevention tool. So right now, the reason why it's evidence-based is that the first 4 hours is a trauma-informed care training. So the pads itself, right now, are just case studies. But the portion of it that's evidence-based is the trauma-informed care approach.
It just shocked me that they didn't have citations in that section of their website. What informed practices are they talking about? I don't know, just caught my eye.
One last question, and then I think we need to move on to new business. I know at one of our previous meetings, it kind of came up that some of us might be interested in having a presentation from one of the trainers on CARE, so we could ask them questions and see what the de-escalation is, see the paths ourselves, and get more information that way. I don't know if that's something we could make happen, but I would really appreciate it.
So I'm thinking about your request. Might be hard to fit into a CCAC meeting because it's a full day training. Although we would probably, we've invited our board members to participate and participate and see the training. We could also extend that invitation to you, the next training.
Parents in our programs that have had questions, either after an IEP meeting, we've taken them to the classrooms. We sent letters out as well at the beginning of the school year, so they've seen the pads, and we don't necessarily demonstrate them, but we can show them how they might be utilized.
The nice thing about it is sometimes in circumstances where students are struggling, they're not just struggling at school, they're also struggling at home. And some of our families have asked that we do cross-training from the program so they can do the same strategies at home. And they may not use pads, but they may be able to pick up a sofa cushion, right? Just for everyone to be safe. And so that's something else that happens, that we do some training, because families are saying, we want to know what's working at school because we want to do it at home, because these things are happening at home. So when we have our next training scheduled, we'll communicate that information to you guys, and then you can send out that information to this team.
It's a training Wednesday.
We need a little bit of time to prepare the trainers and the space and the number of staff. Yeah.
Give us here in December, January.
She'll let you
I guess we need to move on.
Okay, so new business. Anything from any parent members? Okay, how about community members?
I mean, I can say something for parents, like, I know we often come in here and say that we hear the stories that aren't so great, but, my daughter, her history teacher wrote me on the Tuesday before Thanksgiving break at 6:06 p.m. this amazing email of how well she's doing in his history class and how she challenges him to think better. And that while they disagree on whether grunge music is better or 70s, that he feels that she really needs to be an AP next year. And she has an IEP, and she loves a good argument. And I kind of warned our teachers ahead of time, like, if you get something wrong, she will quote you where it is. And he's like, she's only had to do that a few times because I knew a lot of stuff too. But it's just great to know that there are teachers that can take students' differences and see the silver lining in them and just embrace them. And the fact that he wrote me a 5-paragraph email about my kid before a break really warmed my heart. It's pretty much a hardened heart, so that was nice. Sorry, I gotta bring the jokes because you guys are just way too serious.
Okay.
On that note, I'll throw one more thing out there for parent members. I shared this the other day. My son had to have a tooth removed, and strange, somebody got an infection without even having a cavity, but it got a bad infection. I had to have a tooth removed. Took him there, had to put him to sleep. He's level 2 nonverbal. No choice there. Put him to sleep, pull the tooth, send it through insurance. Got a $2,000 bill because they don't cover putting him to sleep for that procedure unless it's 2 or more teeth. Sent in an appeal through an email. Got approved in the first shot. They paid it. They covered it all through Blue Cross Blue Shield. He had his actual dentist appointment today, and I talked to, which I always promote heavily, Mike Bird's Mount Airy Dental Children's Dentistry, amazing with special needs kids. He's also a friend of mine in high school, but he's awesome. And he's,
business cards to hand out?
yeah, and he said that that's a pretty typical process now. That now they usually have informed doctors or dentists in special needs areas that are on committees that get those appeal requests sent to them. So if you're ever in a situation where, don't just accept it, send the appeal, and you know, I saved $2,000 just by sending a single email. But I was even thinking that cued me in when I heard Dawn giving a positive story, and then I thought about that, and then I think about that I'm on the communication with the resources. Might also be nice to add into our website the different, you know, resources for things like dentistry and such that are a little bit outside of the school, but are high recommended for special needs children.
Yeah, I would love to have that on the board, yeah.
It's a common affairs, dental services, right?
Oh, yeah.
We
Okay,
left
dentist
like 6
and,
toothbrushes last time.
haircut. Those are the two that I see all the time. Where's a good person who can handle my kid for a haircut? Who's a good dentist? I see those two. So I'm saying the same thing. If we had obviously financial stuff, all that stuff is important, but like, we gotta take care of these kids. They got teeth. So yeah, having that on there would be great.
Anybody else? How about from FCPS staff members on our committee?
I have a quick question. When do we find out who our next BOE member is? When does that process happen? January. That's what I thought.
Remember, one of our recommendations was that we have input,
So hopefully.
you know, and I have to tell you, I don't know if y'all, whoever was watching, but the response to that from the Board of Ed was really pretty incredible. They were saying they're lining up to everybody wants to be the CCAC liaison, you know? So, you know, they're lining up outside my door coming to ask me. That's what Brad Young was saying, so. We'll have to see. Does anybody know who the new Board of Ed members are? I don't even know. They kept going back and forth.
Karen Yoho's on, Ray, Dean, and
Nancy Allen.
Yeah,
Okay. Very good.
I mean, I'll just put it right out that I would recommend we shoot for Dean Rose or
Yeah.
David Bass, one of the two. That's my
Dean Rose.
personal opinion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with you.
I didn't hear Justin, who's saying?
Dean Rose or
So
David
David
Bass.
Bass.
Rose has been here for 80% of our meetings. He shows
Yes.
up to every Board of Ed meeting, and he hasn't been on the board until now.
Came to the whole resource fair. He said that.
Yeah, he's gonna put in the time and effort.
That was David Bass.
Dean Rose,
Yeah,
he's always,
Dean Rose,
good.
yes.
But David Bass is a good actor.
I'll bet anything David Bass was chomping at the bit, wanting to get the spot when Liz got it.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I absolutely agree with you. So yes, we'll keep bugging the board.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Excuse me?
You gotta find out who the president's gonna be. Then send them an
That's
email.
true. That's true before, yeah.
They decide president and vice president first, then CCAC. I mean, not CCAC, but
Then
who the
the
liaisons
other-
will be for group. But I think it'll be all decided so that their first attendance will be the January meeting.
All right, so let's go comments from Partners for Success. Do we have any information?
We were told that they had a pleasant surprise for us.
I might as well bring it up now. All right, so we have joining us on December 5th, Ms. Rachel Spicer is our new Partners for Success coordinator. I saw some interesting faces, so hopefully that'll be a great addition. I wanted to thank you for suggesting the reclassification. I didn't have the heart to tell you last time that we had already done that. So we submitted on October 1st for reclassification of the position to the Family Engagement Coordinator salary. We don't hear about that until the budget is decided. And we also have requested 3.0, 3, not 2, 3. So we'll see what happens. I didn't have the heart to tell you, you were so jazzed up when you had already done all that work. And I was like, that was really going to upset her if I told her that we had already handled all that. But I appreciate the work, and great minds think alike. So we'll have a new member at our January meeting, Miss Rachel Spicer. So we'll have to greet her with open arms and show her lots of love so we keep her with us. And she came from outside of the system, and she actually does community coordination for mental health. So she has a lot of good connections in that area, which will be really nice.
Yay, very good. That's excellent. Okay, next would be, I know Liz isn't here, but I heard somebody say that they had, she emailed us.
Do you want me to read the comments out loud?
Yeah, that would be fine.
She says she's sorry. Her son, one of her boys, is down with the flu and she's not feeling good. She wanted to share the board members were so impressed with your recommendations and excellent work and superb presentation. She has access to FCPS email through the first days of December. And after that, you can reach her at her phone number, which is listed in the email to everybody. That's her personal cell. Don't share, she says. She met with Dr. Dyson and Dr. Sergo. Dr. Sergo is our chief of staff last week to share some parting thoughts as a board member, a special ed parent, and once again, after that conversation, I think CCAC is well positioned to be a leading voice and a well-received voice on the special education issues. And of course, she said all this lovely stuff. Please know that I know this work isn't always fun. It's tough to be advocates and work within the system, but your time, care, service is so valuable. You're helping students and to improve FCPS. She says, I have learned a lot from you. Take care, Liz.
Okay. Well, next we have director's comments.
So I'll start off and then I'll hand it over to Troy. The first reporting of the recommendations are in board docs. Let me open them up here. Here we go.
Do you know, Linda, I gotta say this, they were not available till today.
They were submitted at the same time we submitted. They don't
I
show
know.
them.
But there was nothing for this meeting. I mean, it showed that we were having a meeting, but both our agenda and that was not available till today.
Correct. It was submitted 3 weeks ago and we had it already. That's what Catherine Rich does. So the Find Out First went out that says CCAC's having a meeting. It's posted to board docs. So what they've begun to do is post the information at the very latest the day of the meeting. Our public affairs head, Dr. Eric Lewis Phillips, has been out on medical leave. And so he's had some replacement people working to support them. So I understand and I'll be happy to report that CCAC was very disappointed that it wasn't posted until today. I can share that.
Thank you. I would say it a little different.
How would you like me to say?
Don't bust my chops about sending in the agenda 2 weeks ahead of time. I'm kidding. I will not. You know.
I know darn well you, and now you're recording. That was Patty, K-O-M-O-N-S. Just kidding. We're good.
Oh, good. Never done it. Now I spelled it.
Okay, back to the director's comments. You guys ready? All right, we'll be brief. So the recommendation to be shared today is linked and wanted to share with you the recommendation that you asked about CCAC recommending that an existing secondary school-based math and literacy intervention specialist in collaboration with special ed case manager ensure the scheduling, implementation, and fidelity of students' interventions listed in their active IEP. So a collaborative core team here centrally reviewed this question and listed all the information. Listed all the information that you need to know with regard to ensuring that this happens. And so a couple of things are going on. Right before previous to the pandemic, we coordinated in every school core teams. Core teams is a group of individuals, all from different expertise lens, math specialists, literacy specialists, special education teachers, administrators, speech language pathologists. They come together on a regular basis to look specifically at every student with needs in their school for the interventions that they need, whether that be only math, only reading, or a combination of reading, writing, and math. Many of our students are doubly impacted and require more than one intervention. When doing that, they identify the most appropriate intervention, they monitor that intervention, they monitor the progress in that intervention. We have coaches at the central level going specifically out to our high schools and saying, okay, here's this student, here's the program that you have them in. Now we've noticed some changes in their progress and it's time to move to a different intervention. So there are coaches that come in and coach the core teams. Let me get back to where we are. Okay, those core teams are a part of data talks or student services teams where they talk about individual students on a weekly basis. They also have, those same core teams are invited to the IEP team meetings. So it's not just the special educator recording or sharing that information, but the literacy specialist, the math specialist, etc. They make determinations about intervention selection, implementation based on student IEP goals, aligned to their present levels of functional performance. Additionally, the school-based literacy and math specialists and special educators collaborate with central teams, I just shared that, to ensure fidelity. And the actual coaches from Central go in and observe lessons and provide feedback to the intervention teachers about the application of the intervention. And certainly if we're in a position where we recognize a school team at the high school level, because this was a recommendation, has recommended a student for an inappropriate intervention, then that's a conversation to convene an IEP team meeting, get back with that core team and say, we need to make a change. This intervention perhaps isn't appropriate. Perhaps they're in a comprehension intervention, they have a comprehension disability, and then we reassess and find out that they have some phonemic awareness issues, and then we need to make an adjustment to a structured literacy intervention as opposed to a comprehension intervention. And so that's been in place. That started the core teams in 2018. 18-19, and then of course 19-20 was a little bit of a bust, and then 20-21 was a little bit of a bust, and now we're back on track. Oh, 21-22 we were better on back on track, and now we're rolling this year. I cannot believe it's 22-23. So the next reporting that we will provide you is in our January meeting, and it's related to the increase of employees to 11 months and the recommendation from 11 to 12 months. I'm going to give you a sneak peek. Our specialized program individuals moved to 11 months. Except learning for life. Our department chairs are at 11 months. Some of our elementary department chairs are at 5 days, 9 days. 5 days and 9 days of support, with the hope that they all move to 11 months. But the whole idea of moving to 12 months has not happened. And it's not something currently through the budget enhancement that's on the radar of the district, because the negotiating unions of FCTA have worked with their staff, and many staff said, I'm not interested in working 12 months a year. I need a break. Kim, you want to work 12 months? So, spoiler alert, but I'm going to pass it over now to Troy to talk more about the rest of the director's comments.
Yes, so for our Board of Education work sessions, you will see that on November 9th, we had a session, And that was where we presented our new special education attorney, Michael Dubay, and we also had Dr. Gwendolyn Mason, who's currently supporting us in a consulting role for the executive director position. They shared information just regarding who they were to the board, and what else did they discuss? It's been a minute since that happened. They did give a DOJ update, a couple of things if you weren't present at that meeting or were able to tune in. We do now have our regulation 400-44 passed and approved. That is all things regarding physical restraint and exclusion. And then we were talking about the training modules that we've been rolling out this year that are required under the terms of the DOJ settlement agreement. And we did provide the board a brief update, and not much has changed as far as staffing since that update. We now only need 3 more board certified behavior analysts to hire. We're doing some more interviews this week, and we still have 1.0 IEP facilitators to hire. And then of course, as Linda mentioned, we put forward the offer for the Partners for Success position. And then Dr. Mason shared about how we've contacted parents and guardians that had children that were a part of the seclusion restraint incidents that happened since 2017, and the efforts to provide them compensatory services. And so some of that included direct communication, parent meetings, direct calling. Moving forward, we're going to be ramping up those efforts. We're going to be seeking some retired folks that will help contact parents again to see if they would like to move forward with the compensatory efforts. We have partnered, or not partnered, but we have awarded a company called Tutor Me Education. So that's one more way to provide in-person or virtual academic services, as well as they also offer therapy. And then we also have partnered with a couple of companies throughout Frederick that offer therapy as well. So we can, for families that do want to move forward with their DOJ compensatory, we can continue to offer that and make it happen. So that was the update. And then right before Thanksgiving, it was a closed session for the Board of Ed work session. So there was no agenda there. And then the last thing on the agenda is that you will see that one of the recommendations for the Blue Ribbon Task Force and the Board of Ed was to approve a process called a request for proposals for a special education audit. You will hear on December 7th the company that the district would like to move forward with. There was a handful of us that rated those companies, and there was one that rose to the top, and all of that information will be shared on the 7th. There were only 4 companies that submitted a bid for us, and so we were only able to rate those 4 companies. We did send it out to companies that we knew that might be able to offer these types of services for us, and so we're hopeful that that company will move forward, and if all works out, everyone was required to provide a timeline of how they would complete the efforts by have a report ready for us by March of 2023. That would include the things like we talked about last time, how they would interview you all and ask you all questions, and that would be integrated into the final report. So December 7th, stay tuned to the board meeting, and you all will, it'll be posted on Board Docs, the company that, all the companies that submitted and their scores.
And that's during the 3 o'clock work session, not the 6 p.m. meeting, just so that you know when that'll be discussed for the board to make a final approval. But it will be posted to Board Docs. Probably right after the decision, Patty.
The board.
After the board votes and they have a decision, they'll post it to Board Docs, if not the next day.
And that concludes director comments.
I have one question. The updates, the number 1, you can link to that, but the other one you can't see. But that was special
that was special ed updates. It was a closed session. The
It really
second
shouldn't
one,
say, because it didn't happen.
we thought, since we submitted it so early, Patty, to make sure that they would upload it, we were gonna link it if it would have happened. But by the time we had already submitted it, they had determined it was gonna be a closed session, which can't be divulged to anybody. Troy and I don't even know what happened in that closed session. That's what he said earlier. So we apologize, but it was because we sent your awesomely created agenda in the right time frame, the meeting minutes and our director comments very, very early. So let's blame it on them for waiting to post it.
So if we can we access this of course online? And does it have a link to the core description you described, the background of core teams?
Yep, so everything that you see up here, it's listed on board docs. So if you guys go to, oh, I can't do it here, because, here, press what? So if you go here to Frederick County Public Schools, www.fcps.org, and right here, this tab, scroll down to board docs, click it. And then if you go over here to this tab that says meetings, over here are the dates, and look, there's CCAC. Open it up. View the agenda. There's the agenda for tonight. And there's the director comments. And everything that's blue has links. So that recommendation reporting is right here. You click it open. There it is.
I think Kara also sent you guys our director comments via email, so you can open that PDF up directly and go.
She didn't do it this time. I think she's had a really busy week and month.
Because we couldn't access it until today.
Because it wasn't, they only get it when it's on board docs.
Yes, yeah. because,
So
yeah.
normally it is attached with our email.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So just briefly, does the core team get acknowledged by an IEP meeting? What's the relationship between the core team and the IEP team? Is it something that is?
They are school team employees at the school, and they're invited to the IEP meeting where the decision for the interventions, the progress of the interventions are discussed. So it could be a intervention teacher, it could be the literacy specialist, it could be the math intervention teacher or the math specialist. Based on the needs of that child and what's being discussed at that meeting, they're invited as a member of that team to have that conversation, so that the special educator isn't alone sitting at the table trying to say, Drew, let me tell you about what I know about your child. I think that was definitely part of the past. Now we're like, no, we need the experts all sitting around the table with the family to talk about how the child is progressing, what's the right intervention, if an intervention change needs to happen.
Thank you. I don't think the notes that I see though flag kind of, this is a core team member, this, just distinguish the roles. I think they might indicate, the specialization. So maybe something we're considering is actually flagging the role of a core team.
So at the elementary, middle, or high level, the core team members are special educator, literacy specialist, math specialist, could be an SLP if they have a speech language. So they aren't often noted as a core team member on the notes. I don't know, I'm not sure how that would work. We'd probably have to do some more coordination to make that happen, but that's who a core team is. So if it always says on the notes, so-and-so is a literacy specialist, so by title, they're on the invitation, by title, not by name. So it might say literacy specialist, math specialist. If you see them there, you know they're a part of the core team.
Right, and one of the reasons why we have core teams is not every student obviously has an IEP. So the purpose of a core team is that you're having ongoing problem solving for every single student in the building.
For an SLD issue or something like that.
No, for any kind of academic issue. They may not have a disability period. It's a problem-solving approach to analyzing data, academic data, behavioral data, social emotional data, all of that, And so that's the purpose why every school must have a core team to address those needs through a problem-solving approach, which may lead to an IEP or a 504, but may or may not required.
But at an IEP meeting, you could ask the people who are they part of your child's core team? And their names are all on the back of on the last page, the signature page of the.
Yeah, I mean, I think
meeting notes.
if the point is to have a structure, a process, if you will, I mean, I think calling that out would be pretty straightforward for all the parents who are educating themselves. Oh, the philosophy here is the core team, and helping manifest that in the notes, I think would be great.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Linda and Troy from their presentation?
Well, I have one.
Yes,
I
sir.
saw a note in one of the documents that came, I think it was notes from the last meeting, talking about special education teachers leaving the district because of being overworked and doing some kind of required training they had to do for other teachers, I think. What was that about?
That was.
Don't know what we're talking about.
That was, Alyssa had spoken up, and it says that, spoke about keeping special ed teachers from leaving SCPS. They're overworked. One of the things that right now in the middle and high school that they're not pleased with is that a lot of the case managers are doing the Bauman Orton Gillingham Plus.
That was what it was, and I
Yes.
wasn't familiar with that.
Yes, it's a reading intervention program for kids who I use it at school I'm working at. It's for kids with dyslexia. Yes, I am retired, semi-retired. I told the board that.
Retired.
But anyway, the problem is that they have a lot of work where they're supposed to go into the classrooms and be with their students and supporting them during science or social studies, just aside from them being the person who's doing this OG Plus program. And that's a pullout only and very small groups. And that's what she was saying, is that the case managers are juggling all of this now, and they feel like they're failing because they're not, their primary thing is getting their kids to read, but they're not able to provide the other supports. And that's.
So that was a comment from a member.
Yes, that was a comment.
Yeah,
We currently
I
have,
read it and I didn't know if it was a valid one or not, but I read it and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Are you really losing? Yeah, are you losing teachers? It was just what was the thrust of the comment.
well, I would say that across the nation, if you haven't already read any articles about how many teachers left the profession because of the need to change their practice and recognize, perhaps some said, you know what, I can make twice what I'm making now by my work at home job and have a little bit less stress. I think that's true nationwide, but we don't have any data that suggests that we had a mass exodus. We increased positions quite dramatically from the board recognizing we need more special educators. So we worked really hard to fill those positions since last July 1 when it was all allocated. And right now we're down to about 12 teaching vacancies out of 300, and we're 98% staffed. And those 370 teachers, we're 98% staffed. We have 12 vacancies. And in those positions, we have some substitutes, long-term substitutes. So actually, and I'm nervous that we're recording and I'm trying to look for wood. We're really ahead of the nation. I think that's wood. I think this is. We're quite ahead of other Maryland districts. Montgomery County's really struggling and they're having mass exoduses. But we're ahead of other districts in that comparatively. But we want to value what Alyssa shared, right? That's her personal experience and it's valuable. And I'm sure there's others that feel that way. We just don't have the data right now that supports that as a concern for the district.
Well, one example is as we expand our continuum is that you may always be called a special ed teacher, but for instance, some teachers are used to, I teach small groups the whole day or an intervention the whole day. And then some want to be co-teachers. And so then they're paired with a certain teacher the whole day. Right now, they're doing a little bit of both, which, some may not be desirable.
I think the key is, what's the I in IEP for? Individualized. And every individual child is complex in the nature and the need. And I think what we're really focused in on the district now is saying, okay, what is a special educator's role with their caseload? And how can they provide the appropriate specially designed instruction specific to the students that they have on their caseload? So right now we have a range of 10 to 15 students for elementary, 15 to 20 students at secondary. Now it's a balance of being able to say, Troy's on my caseload and Linda's on my caseload. Troy needs pull out for math and math intervention. I should be able to meet the requirement of fidelity of the IEP as we promised families we would for Troy to get math, or I need to push into Linda's language arts class because she just really struggles with a little bit of writing, and she has in general ed supports about 30 minutes a day. So I've got to figure out, how do I balance with my 15 elementary students, making sure that I provide that individualized, specially designed instruction in my schedule. And so that's kind of where we're trying to move towards. I know Kim's looking because programs are a little different. If they're teaching the program class of expressions, they're the teacher of that classroom. So we're talking more about students who have mild or moderate disabilities, but they're learning in the mainstream environment.
The vacancy number 12, is that special ed teachers, the countywide SEIAs, what's included in that?
That's teachers, 12
Special ed.
teachers, 375 total teachers across elementary, middle, and high. And of those 375, we have 12 teaching vacancies of special education
So it's just
teachers.
special ed.
Yeah.
And does FCPS do exit interviews for when people leave the county?
That was a discussion at the last board meeting.
I was thinking about that the other day.
So human resources, Dr. Sergo, as the chief of staff, is helping to ensure that human resources here in Frederick County is revamped. They just hired a new human resources director, Jen Nguyen. She has experience in many other counties for many, many years, and they're doing a lot of more innovative recruitment and talking about exit interviews and all those components. So they're working on getting there. They've done some great recent upgrades to customer service, and they're much more responsive, which is why I think we're seeing fewer vacancies, but they have still room to grow.
That's a question about one of the director's comments. I think I would just say that specialized program, special education teachers will be 11 months, except for July, special needs.
They currently are.
They already are.
Yeah, so all of our pyramid programs, 11 months.
Okay.
All of our expression programs, 11 months. That means the teachers, the IAs, the BCBAs, everybody is 11 months. That's to help ensure that they have time to talk to each other, talk about student needs, get extra professional learning specific to their program. TJ High happens to also have a Learning for Life program, so we allow that program to have 11 months. That currently exists. We have requested in the budget that Rock Creek, all Learning for Life, become 11 months.
That's awesome. I was curious if you expect that will help with like retention for those positions specifically. So as like anecdotally, I look at schools with all the programs, I feel like there's kind of more turnover, especially in pyramid among teachers. And I'm wondering if with the pay bump to 11 months, that will help with keeping teachers there.
Right now, we don't know. We have to do a case study.
Yeah.
And make a big evidence base. And then Dr. Chambers, Dr. Chambers could write about that with Luke. You wanna? Let's do this.
Because it's our plan.
No, I'm just, we don't have enough evidence yet. We don't have enough evidence
When
yet.
we offered the
too early.
expressions, 11 months, we only lost maybe 2 SEIAs that didn't want to become 11-month SEIAs, and we lost 1 teacher, but she actually was moving out of the county.
So it just wasn't gonna work out.
Kim, how do you experience the 11-month opportunity?
I think it gives me personally breathing space. One of the things that has been beneficial to our entire team, we now know every Wednesday we meet as a team. We meet with IAs, the behavior specialists, everyone comes together on Wednesday at 2:30. So it's nice to know if you have an issue, a concern with your student, concern, what is working for you, what's not working for you with the student. That has changed us dramatically. It gives more camaraderie. We can decide to do brunches and stuff after school together. So it builds a team spirit. It gives us breathing space. It has been a tremendous benefit to us. So I complimented this team. Thank you for that recommendation. We're growing and finding out more and more how beneficial that is to us as a team.
To clarify, your 11-month position is spread over a 10-month period, correct? Because I
Yes.
feel like
So
if you
that
go to a
makes-
true 11-month or 12-month situation, that will hurt retention. But the way that that's set up, it does give you more breathing space.
And it works for staff like myself and we're a team of 5 teachers. And 3 of us come in as early as 6 o'clock and leave at the regular time. That allows us to do some things also because we come in and we can flex our schedule. But we have like a mandatory meeting for the entire team every Wednesday and now we're after school. And that gives us a lot of room to do things together as a team.
And I forgot also department chairs. They are 11 months, with the exception of a couple small elementary schools that have very few kids, which is 5 or 9 days extra. So looking forward to finding out.
Well, and I was thinking that you brought up, I think there'd be a lot of teachers
And that's-
who would also appreciate it being actually higher paid than 10 months too, as like an incentive to stay in those positions.
I'm sorry, I hit you.
Okay.
No, nobody.
It's a
no,
360
no.
recorded it. so-
Troy just reminded us also that it was negotiated that all of our speech language pathologists are 11 months as well right now.
But again, that 11-month is within a 10-month time period.
We actually came early. We were at school almost a week and a half before the other teachers.
Like to your point, it's not an 11-month calendar.
Yeah.
It's 18 days or 126 hours. However, with specialized programs, because you're working with SEIAs, behavior specialists, potentially therapists and teachers, we did say, hey, we need some trainings up front before ever. So we did say, come back a couple days early. But in general, we do give, it's a hybrid kind of calendar.
But those specialized programs, the teachers and case managers and team leaders, they have very long days. So, I mean, I was very lucky for 2 years to be an 11-month. I think it was some kind of grant that we all had. But anyway,
You're lucky you like.
it helped. You're
The other thing
our
that.
principal like. Okay, so what we have, all we have left is a review of the action items that,
So we need to get Dustin access to those budget forms and bring the amendment regarding the budget to the January meeting for the committee to vote on.
is there anything else you'd like to see on action items?
Is it that our committee, has to confirm training and that money, the $400 the speaker will be? Because we meet on December 12th.
Any other financial requests you can come up with? To send my way. Would be great.
I'll make sure Karen knows
Um,
that's.
And then, do I need to do anything else to get the process started for Tuscarora to get paid out the very one? Does the amendment have to go through first week and send that money to them?
Yes.
So,
So
it's
they
gonna be a
won't see-
while.
Yeah, they probably won't see it until February or March.
Okay.
That's buddies.
Yeah, do you mind sending that email, or do you want me to send it since you already contacted her? or-
I'd be happy to.
Okay. Let her know it was
I'll put myself
approved.
as an action item.
Sorry, you already
No.
contacted her, that's it. Yeah, so let her know it was approved, but it won't be till February, when she gets the money.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to put as an action item?
Go ahead.
If there is excess uncommitted money, I'd recommend making a token donation to the Nutcracker School. The school that puts on the Nutcracker event. It was very nice last year. They have very nice costumes. It's a nice benefit that they're providing to the community. I threw that out last year. It didn't get a lot of support. Doesn't sound like it's getting this time either.
I think that was what I was asking about earlier, because I thought, I didn't know if we wanted to donate something to it too, but. I'll take note of it, and we'll take all, like, as many ideas as we can come up with between now and the January one, and then we're just gonna have to really collaborate. I'm gonna come prepared. And we need to make votes on everything and allocate all funding at the end of the next meeting. So I'll put that one on the list also.
Anything else? Thank you. I thought that was good.
There's not anything else, I'll make a motion to adjourn our meeting early, because we never get.
Second.
Look at that. So we have the motion
Seconded
on
that. There was like everybody.
everybody, not just me to vote, everybody.
All set.
Well, let's vote. Should we adjourn the meeting? All in favor?
The next meeting's January 23rd.